Martins Chidiogo had everything a man could dream of. Wealth, power, and global business connections that opened doors from the hotels of Dubai to the factories of ABA. They called him the Bread King of Africa, a billionaire titan who dominated oil, gas, and real estate. He was just 34 years old, a man who had already achieved what most only pray for. But beneath the elite boardroom meetings and private jets, Martins carried a secret weight. He still walked with a limp, a permanent scar from a childhood accident and a failed herbal treatment. Before the billions, he was just a barefoot boy running through traffic, hawking bread to survive after his father, Martins Sr., died when he was only 8. Bread saved his life, but the streets left him with a limp and a deep insecurity that money couldn't fix. If you're just tuning into this channel, please subscribe, give this video a thumbs up, and don't forget to share with your friends and family, and tell us where you're watching from in the comments section. Before the custom-tailored igbadas and the quiet hum of private jets, Martins Chidiogo's world was defined by the sharp yeasty scent of fresh ajij bread and the stinging heat of the Lagos sun. The transition from comfort to the concrete jungle was brutal. When his father, Martins Sr., passed away, the boy was only 8 years old, yet he was thrust into a life of full-blown poverty. His childhood was not spent with toys, but with the weight of a wooden tray balanced precariously on his head and the frantic rhythm of dodging reckless danfo drivers in heavy traffic. While his mother trailed behind with a polyethylene bag full of change, Martins learned the language of the streets, the insults of drivers, the sweat of the hustle, and the absolute necessity of survival. It was during these grueling years that an accident and a subsequent failed herbal treatment left him with a permanent limp. He became the half-one, a boy who walked as if time itself were dragging him down, yet he refused to let his spirit stay grounded. Even as a university student, while his peers were distracted by the fleeting joys of youth, Martins was a shadow in the kitchens of hostels and staff quarters, supplying the very bread that had fed him. The turning point came when a school principal, impressed by the boy's relentless consistency and the quality of his loaves, offered him a contract to supply an entire boarding school. Martins didn't just fulfill the order, he dominated it. One school became 10, and 10 became 20. He realized that while the world saw a boy with a limp, the market saw a man who delivered. By the time he graduated, he hadn't just earned a degree, he had earned his first million. That first million, built on the back of the humble bread that saved his life, was the foundation of the empire that would eventually crown him the Bread King of Africa. To the outside world, Martins Chidiogo was a mountain of a man, a titan whose signature on a contract could shift the economy of a state. In the glass-walled boardrooms of Lagos and Dubai, his voice was steady and his gaze was piercing, commanding a respect that bordered on awe. But as soon as the meetings ended and the heavy mahogany doors closed, the invincible CEO vanished, replaced by a man haunted by the echoes of a playground taunt. Despite his private jets and the sprawling estates that bore his name, Martins was a prisoner to a secret, paralyzing fear, the fear of being seen as half a man. His success in business was a shield, a multi-billion naira distraction from the limp that defined his private identity. While he could navigate the complexities of cryptocurrency and real estate with ease, the simple act of walking across a room in the presence of a woman felt like crossing a minefield. Every time a woman's eyes lingered on him a second too long, his mind didn't register admiration, it registered pity. He could hear the phantom whispers of his childhood classmates, their laughter cutting through his expensive igbadas as they chanted the nickname that had never truly left him, half-one. This insecurity was a ghost that followed him into his most private spaces. He had mastered the art of the seated power play, ensuring he was already behind a desk or tucked into the back of a luxury SUV before any female associate entered his presence. He hid from their gaze because he was convinced that once they saw the way time seemed to drag his left leg, the billionaire would disappear, and only the spoiled robot would remain. Martins was a king on paper, but in the world of the heart, he felt like a fraud, waiting for someone to finally realize that the Bread King was walking on broken pillars. It was a humid Sunday morning when Martins first saw her, and for a moment, the bustling energy of the cathedral seemed to stand still. Chidera Eshio was positioned at the center of the choir loft, draped in shimmering gold and white robes that caught the light with every move she made. As she sang, her voice rising in a sweet melodic arc, Marthins felt a sensation he had never experienced in his 34 years, the sudden terrifying spark of hope. By what he could only describe as divine arrangement, they ended up sitting side by side during the closing prayers. Summoning a boldness he didn't know he possessed, Marthins introduced himself, his heart hammering against his ribs as he watched her lips curl into a soft, dazzling smile. The weeks that followed were a whirlwind of opulence and high-speed romance. Marthins, driven by a deep-seated need to prove his worth despite his limp, poured his vast fortune at her feet. He whisked her away on private jets to secluded resorts, though his own crushing schedule often meant she traveled while he stayed behind to manage his empire. He showered her with manna from heaven, heavy gold jewelry that weighed down her delicate neck, designer handbags, and rare perfumes. He didn't stop at Chitara. He extended his generosity to her parents, paying off their lingering debts and gifting them a brand new generator to ensure they never sat in darkness again. To Marthins, every gift was a brick in the foundation of the home he had always dreamed of building. When he finally proposed, and Chitara accepted with a joyous squeal, he believed he had finally beaten the ghosts of his past. He saw only her beauty and her choir girl grace, completely unaware that while he was falling in love, Chitara was simply falling in love with the life his billions could provide. Marthins believed his love story had finally begun when Chitara accepted his proposal with a squeal of delight. Eager to share his joy, he brought her home to meet Mama Marthins. Chitara arrived perfectly packaged for the role of a daughter-in-law, dressed in a modest iro and buba, clutching a basket of fruit with a smile that seemed to radiate grace. She was the picture of respect, kneeling to greet the older woman and even rolling up her sleeves to help in the kitchen, her hands busy stirring the stew as if she had been part of the family for years. To Marthins, the day was a triumph, but the air in the house changed the moment the door closed behind his fiancée. Mama Marthins didn't share his excitement. Instead, she locked the door and turned to him with eyes that saw through the expensive fabrics and polished manners. "Her eyes are not pure," she whispered, her voice heavy with a mother's intuition. Marthins blinked in confusion, defending Chitara as kind and godly, but his mother shook her head dismissively. She described a woman who wasn't looking at the man, but at the empire he had built. While Chitara was smiling, Mama Marthins had watched her eyes darting across the room like a CCTV camera, scanning the crystal chandelier, the thickness of the center rug, and even the quality of the curtain rods. "It is like her mind is counting money while her lips are smiling," she warned, urging her son to know her true spirit before it was too late. Marthins sighed, dismissing the warning as typical maternal overprotectiveness, convinced that Chitara was the one to finally see past his limp. Mama Marthins simply shrugged, a final chilling warning hanging in the air: "My spirit doesn't lie." Despite the heavy weight of her words, Marthins chose to let his hope blind him, and the wedding preparations kicked off in full force. Marthins Chidiogo stood in the hallway of the Eschio family home, the weight of a brand new white Range Rover key pressing against his palm. He had arrived 2 hours early, driven by a restless, boyish excitement to see Chitara before the world claimed their day. He wanted to see her face when he told her the car was parked outside, draped in a massive red ribbon, a final testament that the barefoot boy who once hawked bread had finally found a queen to share his throne. The house was alive with the scent of expensive hairspray and lilies, but the corridor leading to the bridal suite was strangely quiet. As Marthins approached the mahogany door, his limp felt lighter than usual, buoyed by a hope he hadn't felt since before his father, Marthins Sr., passed away. He reached for the handle, but a burst of sharp, high-pitched laughter from inside made him pause. "That man? Please don't make me laugh," Chitara's voice rang out, stripped of the sweet, choir girl melody he had fallen in love with. "Have you seen the way he limps like some spoiled robot? It irritates me. Sometimes I want to vomit just looking at him." Marthins felt the air leave his lungs. He leaned his forehead against the cool wood of the door, praying he had misheard. But the bridesmaids only egged her on, asking why she was going through with the ceremony. "Because the man is rich. Are you new here?" Chitara hissed with a cold, mercenary confidence. "I must collect my share. He is nice, yes, but he is not my type. I like my men tall, dark, and whole." Martins is not whole. He's just a sponsor, an escape from poverty. Once I've chopped enough of his wealth, I'm bouncing back to endurance. He's a broke mechanic, but he's a real man who knows how to handle me. Outside the door, the billionaire bread king felt his heart turn to ash. The car keys slipped from his numb fingers, hitting the carpet with a dull thud that sounded like a coffin closing. He didn't burst in, he didn't scream. Instead, he turned and limped back down the stairs, every step heavy with the realization that the woman he was about to marry saw him only as a crippled bank account. As he walked past her unsuspecting parents and out to his car, the insecurity that had haunted him since childhood flared into a cold, silent fire. The wedding would still happen, but the man Chitara thought she was trapping had already vanished. Marthin sat in the back of the car, the silence of the vehicle a sharp contrast to the celebratory noise he had just escaped. His heart felt like a piece of lead in his chest, heavy and cold. He pulled out his phone, his fingers steady despite the turmoil in his soul. He dialed a number he knew by heart. "Barrister, come to the house now," he said, his voice dropping to a low, dangerous calm. When the lawyer arrived, he was breathless, still adjusting his tie. "Sir, today is your wedding. The guests are already arriving at the church. Can't this wait?" Martins didn't look up from the desk. "Don't be late for the ceremony, but do this now," he replied. He pushed a stack of papers forward. The instructions were surgical and absolute. Every hotel in Dubai, every oil block, every cryptocurrency wallet, and every single estate in Lekki was to be stripped from his name. "Transfer all my assets, all my businesses, and every property to my mother, Mama Martins," he commanded. "My name must not be tied to a single account. By 10 a.m. today, I want to be a legally penniless man." The lawyer hesitated, his pen hovering over the signature line, asking if he was truly sure of such a radical move. Martins simply nodded. "Do it now." As the documents were signed and the calls to the banks were finalized, Martins felt a strange sense of relief. He watched the digital balances on his screen drop to zero. He was no longer the bread king to the law. He was just a man with a limp and a broken heart. He adjusted his expensive white agbada in the mirror, looking every bit the billionaire, while knowing that the woman waiting for him at the altar was about to marry a ghost of the fortune she craved. He walked out of the study, his limp heavier than before, ready to play the part of the happy groom in a wedding built on the very lie Chitara had authored. For the first 6 months of their marriage, the luxury Chitara had envisioned turned into a calculated mirage. Martins played his part with the precision of a master actor, maintaining the charade of a man who had been stripped of his financial autonomy. He traded his extravagant spending for a life of strict budgeting, claiming that his mother, Mama Martins, now held the keys to the empire and only released a modest monthly allowance for their upkeep. At first, Chitara tried to play the supportive wife, but as the weeks bled into months, the mask of the godly choir girl began to crack. The house, once a place of celebration, became a battlefield of demands. The breaking point arrived one Tuesday afternoon when Chitara stormed into Marthin's study, slamming a fashion catalog onto his desk. She demanded 3 million naira immediately for a collection of high-grade Turkish wigs and a new designer wardrobe to maintain her status among her friends. When Martins calmly checked his phone and showed her an account balance that barely covered the next week's groceries, Chitara finally snapped. The woman who had once knelt to greet his mother was gone. In her place was a stranger with eyes full of venom. She screamed that she could not be a billionaire's wife living on a houseboy's salary, calling him a fraud and a crippled sponsor who had lured her into a life of hidden poverty. She spent her days making frantic calls to her friends and her mother, weeping about the suffering she endured in a mansion that had no liquid cash. Despite her mother's pleas to stay and build with her husband, Chitara's greed acted like a possessed spirit. She began to treat Martins with open disgust, intentionally mocking his limp as he walked through the halls, unaware that every insult she hurled was simply confirming the decision he had made the morning of their wedding. The courtroom was filled with a heavy, suffocating silence as Chitara entered, her heels clicking against the floor with the confidence of a woman about to inherit a kingdom. She wore a designer gown and dark sunglasses, looking more like she was attending a gala than a divorce hearing. She didn't look at Marthins, who sat quietly in a simple faded shirt, his lawyer holding nothing but a slim brown envelope. Chitra's lawyer stood tall, his voice booming with the arrogance of a man expecting a massive payout. He spoke of marital rights, standard of living, and demanded exactly 50% of Marthins Chidiogo's vast empire, citing the hotels, the oil blocks, and the luxury estates. When it was time for the defense, Marthin's lawyer stood up without a single tremor in his voice. "My lord," he began, opening the envelope, "my client, Mr. Marthins Chidiogo, currently owns nothing. Not a single car, not a house, and certainly not a business." A low murmur rippled through the gallery. Chitra's lawyer scoffed, but the smile died on Chitra's lips as the documents were presented. The lawyer continued, "Every asset was legally transferred to his mother, Mama Marthins, prior to the wedding date. Currently, the only account in Mr. Marthins' name holds a total balance of 10,000 naira." The judge adjusted his glasses, peering at the bank statement. "Then the court orders an equal division," the judge ruled calmly. "Mrs. Chitra Eshio is hereby awarded 5,000 naira." The explosion was instantaneous. Chitra jumped from her seat, her face contorting with a rage that stripped away every ounce of her beauty. "You wicked, crippled man!" she screamed, her voice cracking as she threw her expensive handbag toward the bench. Marthin stood up slowly, his limp more pronounced than ever, yet he looked more powerful than she had ever seen him. He looked at her with eyes of quiet fire. "I heard everything you said on our wedding day, Chitra," he said softly, loud enough for only her to hear. "I removed my heart that morning. Now I have removed the money too." He signed the final papers and walked out of the courtroom, leaving Chitra to realize she had traded a lifetime of love for 5,000 naira. After the storm of the divorce settled, Marthins buried himself in the only thing that didn't talk back: work. He moved through his mansion like a ghost, the silence only broken by the rhythmic unevenness of his footsteps on the marble floor. He had expected the vacuum left by Chitra to feel like a loss, but instead, it felt like an ending that refused to heal. That was until he truly noticed Piso Lumbra. She had been his housekeeper for months, a woman of quiet dignity and sharp efficiency. But one evening, Marthins found her in the library, not dusting the shelves, but deeply absorbed in a complex volume on global trade logistics. When he questioned her, the truth emerged like a hidden treasure. Peace wasn't just a domestic worker. She was a woman with a master's degree in business administration who had been stripped of her own company and dignity by a man she once trusted. Like Marthins, she had been discarded by someone who saw her brilliance as a tool rather than a soul. Marthins didn't just offer her a seat at the table, he offered her a boardroom. As he watched her dissect market trends and outmaneuver seasoned consultants, his admiration transformed into something deeper. For the first time, he wasn't looking for a woman to validate his worth. He found a partner who matched his mind. Their late-night strategy sessions on the balcony shifted from talk of stocks to the sharing of old wounds. In Peace's eyes, Marthins didn't see a spoiled robot or a crippled sponsor. He saw a man whose limp was a testament to his survival. Their union was quiet, a stark contrast to the hollow noise of his first wedding. When Peace eventually showed him the positive pregnancy test, the last of Marthin's insecurities finally dissolved. Falling to his knees, the man who had built an empire from bread finally felt whole. He realized that while betrayal had cost him a fortune, it had led him to the only thing wealth could never buy, a house that was finally a home.